Hello, everyone. Welcome to SalesScreen Game Master 101. I'm Kaylin Kless, a customer success manager here at SalesScreen, and I will be sharing some tips and tricks with you today. We know a lot of our admins are broadly familiar with their way around SalesScreen as an app. They know the basic features and what buttons to click to make a competition, but we know a lot of you are ready to level up and think about SalesScreen as a holistic tool that can motivate an entire team. So we're looking at ways that you can build your competitions in a more thoughtful way, that you can build a program of competitions that's going to foster your long-term goals. We're looking at ways to set up your entire environment so that we're rewarding people in between those moments of competition and making sure that we're able to keep our teams focused on the most important metrics and the things they need to be doing to hit them. So that being said, feel free to ask questions in the chat, including beginner questions, including technical questions. If you've just gotten started with SalesScreen and you're just learning the basics, we think you'll still get a lot of inspiration and get a better sense of what's possible moving forward. So today we're going to be discussing breaking top goals into manageable initiatives, encouraging individual ownership of tasks amongst your teams so that you don't need to micromanage, and choosing the right gamification strategies for every stage of your campaigns and all of your personalities on your team. It's very easy once you've gotten into SalesScreen to start using the same setup that you first had when you got on the platform, but it's much more effective when you create competitions and other initiatives like achievements that are responsive to things like where you are in the sales cycle, where you are in the year, what's going on with your individual team members. So we're going to talk a little bit about different competition types and what should go into your decision making when you're choosing the right ones for the job. So jumping into our first topic, breaking your goals into manageable initiatives. This is something that you're probably already doing to a certain extent already just by setting targets. If you're not setting your targets in SalesScreen, definitely go in and put them there. Most people already have a revenue target of some sort, and usually that's in SalesScreen, but there's a few things to keep in mind when setting them. So the first is individual goals versus company goals. A lot of times you'll have a company goal of, say, $100,000 a month. We're going to keep the math super easy. And if you've got a team of 4, you would break that down into 25,000 each. But we don't necessarily want the whole to be greater than the sum of its parts in our example. So you can set individual targets as well as team targets. So if you have a company goal of 100,000, maybe make the individual goals 30,000 each as opposed to 25,000 so that no one team member can make you miss a company goal by having an off quarter or something like that. Another thing to keep in mind when setting your targets is just general market trends. So it's easy to copy your targets from month to month in SalesScreen, and that's really great if your targets do stay the same from each month or each quarter, and that makes a lot of sense. But it's a good idea to look at the overall market trends. For example, if you're selling property insurance, maybe focus more of your targets into the spring and the summer and put higher value there when most real estate deals are taking place. So the trends in your own industry will be able to help you adjust the targets to reflect when most of that activity will be happening. Your individual company's past performance will also be different from the overall trends in your market for various reasons. So use your own data, and you can import historical data into SalesScreen if you need to help you analyze and further tailor your targets for each month. Also, don't neglect the earlier stages of your sales funnel when setting targets. If you have the Pro package, I would particularly encourage you to use activity flows. These break up the sales cycle into, say, a call, a meeting, and then your later stages like sending a quote or a contract and the final sale. And they can show the hit rates for each of these steps in your dashboard. So you can use these hit rates to look back at your past data and pick appropriately early funnel targets. So you can say, okay, I know that I usually get a sale from 1 out of 3 demo meetings, so I need to put a target on meetings that is 3 times the number of sales we want closed won. And if it usually takes 10 calls to get to 1 person who sits down in a demo meeting with you, you know what target to set for those as well. It's very easy to only encourage the end result. You're very focused on the revenue, of course, but where people tend to get burnt out is just the daily grind of calls, meetings, those early funnel metrics. So make sure you're including those in your targets and including them in your gamification, that you're recognizing them throughout the year so that you can encourage them across the board. So here are just a few ways you can take advantage of having really good, accurate targets. First of all, these will help Scout AI give you better advice. So if you already have that trial enabled, this is a good time to test it out. And we'll talk more about Scout at the end of the presentation. But just know that everything we tell SalesScreen helps Scouts help you better. But you can also use these to show progress to your targets in leaderboards. Once you have those targets set, you can set widgets on your dashboard that are based on those targets and their completion. You can set competitions that focus on target completion. You can show company target countdowns on your screen so that everyone knows how far they have to go as a group to get to goal. And you can set achievements on both team and individual goals. So you don't have to set your achievements on hitting a certain number of sales. You can just say that when somebody makes 100% of their target, they're going to get an achievement. So moving on to our next topic, the encouraging of individual ownership of tasks. This is one of the most frequently heard pain points that I find when I'm talking with sales leaders. They feel like they have to do a lot of cheerleading to remind individuals to take action on improving their performance. And frequently this just comes down to visibility for your team. If they don't feel like they know what success looks like and how to get there, and especially how it'll be rewarded, it can be very hard to help keep them motivated. So let's talk a little bit more about that and what visibility can look like in SalesScreen. So as I said, you want to make sure that everyone understands what success looks like. This can be done in the form of those target progression widgets, which is why I put so much emphasis on choosing your targets wisely when you're doing your setup at first. And also keep in mind, we have a mobile app where you can have those leaderboards and KPIs. So even if you have a large remote team or a team that travels a lot and might not be in the office or on a laptop, there's a place where they can constantly be checking up on their progress. If you have scorecards enabled in your package, definitely go through and make sure that all of your KPIs are weighted appropriately. And that might involve setting up different scorecards for each team who have slightly different priorities, and that you're pushing the things that matter most to your organization. So for example, if you have an inbound and an outbound team, maybe calls aren't quite so important to the inbound team. They might not even be aligned on your scorecard, but they're going to obviously be heavily weighted if you have an outbound calls team. Another way to keep progression top of mind is just making sure that you have achievements set on marking not just the goal, 100% completion, but maybe some milestones. If somebody gets an achievement for, 50%, you're halfway to your goal for this month or this quarter, or 75%. It encourages people to keep going when they see how close they are. You can also put some achievements on stretch goals. So if you make 125% of your goal, then you're going to get something a little bit extra, and it encourages people to keep pushing to see how many more achievements they can get. By breaking goals up into milestones that you can get achievements for, we're shining light on what the path to success actually looks like. If you have access to the coaching module, or even if you don't and you just have some frequent one-on-ones, make sure that you have your coaching sessions on a regular basis to check in on performance metrics, any blockers that your team might be having. And this is really valuable even if you don't have the time to make these coaching sessions super frequent, as long as it's consistent. It's very helpful for your team to know exactly the next time they're going to get some time with you to talk about their performance, exactly what metrics you're going to be pulling in to judge that performance. And they're going to be more likely to keep an eye on their own performance trends in between coaching sessions because they know they're going to be discussing their performance with you at regular intervals. SalesScreen also has a relatively new feature, Missions, which is targeted just at getting people to take a little initiative themselves. People can declare goals that they plan to achieve within a chosen time frame. And this can be a combination of target attainment on any of the metrics you have in SalesScreen. They can set achievement badges that they want to collect within the time frame of the mission. And they can also put in custom to-do items that can be written in if you have things that aren't necessarily captured in your system. And new missions are announced in the feed and on the screens. If you have coins enabled in your account, managers can boost the mission by promising a coins reward if it's completed successfully. So that's something we definitely recommend doing to encourage more of them. And managers can also create a mission for a team member based on areas where they could improve or places where they could stretch their skills. And these can be particularly effective when set collaboratively in a coaching session. So based on the performance and the issues that you're discussing, you can sit there and create a mission for them or tell them to create a mission for themselves. That might be even better for creating a sense of agency in your team. Last but not least, You want to make sure that people know that their success will be recognized and how it's going to be celebrated and rewarded. So one of the simplest, most effective things you can do is get live screens up on your office walls if you don't already have them. We're happy to help with them if you run into any trouble and answer questions. And make sure everyone has personalized their celebration videos. A lot of times this is the first thing people do when they set up the account, but if you didn't initially have screens, it might get avoided. So if your team hasn't yet, remind them or even set up some videos for them to help you get started. If you're a manager, you can go into their profile settings and choose a celebration for them. We have a selection of popular ones all over the company from YouTube that you can just grab. Sometimes people won't change the default celebration, but if you give them a brand new song from the suggestions, it'll remind them they have the option to choose something personal of their own, and that's a good way to give people a little nudge. Another thing to do is take advantage of endorsements. You can create them in that new button at the top of your left ribbon menu or in the plus button on the app. And anyone can do endorsements, not just managers, but also peers. But it starts top down. So managers need to endorse their team for those little on the spot things that aren't necessarily captured by their target achievements. If you see somebody who's putting extra hours in every night and making a few more calls, or is just really good at helping others with overflow tasks, the endorsement is a good way to call that out and make sure that other people can see that it's valuable and it's appreciated. Notice that, oh, whenever Sarah got an achievement streak for going over her calls goals every day of the week, or Josh did some extra hours to cover for a sick coworker, management notices that. And then these types of behaviors become the company culture. And make sure that they know when they get those endorsements that they can give endorsements to each other. So you can get really meta with this and endorse people who frequently endorse others, as long as they're endorsing for things that are actually helpful. And in this way, you create a culture of appreciation. People are more encouraged when they know they're going to be recognized for going the extra mile, and not just by their manager, but by their peers as well. Lastly, make sure that you have your bonuses for activities and achievements and your competition prizes appropriately weighted and that they're appealing. For high value activities, you can give coins bonuses just for completing a sale if you have the coins and reward store enabled. You can go into your coin setup in rewards and just make sure that some of your highest value activities have a bonus just for completing them. You can also set coins bonuses on achievement badges, set achievement badges to certain targets for beating a personal record. You can set achievement badges for achieving more on one week than you did the previous week. There's a lot of ways to play with those, so it's worth going through and seeing where you can encourage your most prioritized metrics with a variety of achievements. I suggest having coins bonuses on your highest value achievements to make them more exciting. And for best results in competitions, make sure your prizes are things that people actually like. This seems a bit obvious, but if you haven't seen a lot of enthusiasm when you run a competition, or if you haven't had any reward shop requests in a while, even though it's fully built out, that might be a sign that things are getting a little bit stale and that people want to see something new. So the good thing about this is that you can just directly ask people. You can say, hey, what would you like to see in the reward shop? People usually like to share their wish lists. You can also deputize a member of your team to design rewards and manage the reward shop as long as they know what the budget is. This person usually becomes really invested in creating a nice collection and making sure the rest of the team knows about it. And you can keep in mind that not everything in the reward shop needs to be of monetary value. We've seen a lot of success with companies that just offer FaceTime with an exec for a certain number of coins. That can be something that's really meaningful to people who are trying to grow their career. We've seen rewards for a free pass to leave early by an hour, maybe on a chosen date, and then just giving a little bit of extra flexibility to people to make it to a child's baseball game or dance recital or another family or social event. These things can be really exciting to people and make them feel appreciated, even without having to allot extra budget to the rewards shop. So next we come to one of my favorite topics, and this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time, which is choosing the right gamification strategies for every stage of your campaign. While this can be a lot of fun, it can also be a challenge to find new and engaging ways to gamify your goals week after week and month after month. So I hope you've got a little back to school spirit in you this fall, because I'm going to bring you back to the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. I was taught these for writing school reports when I was a kid. I don't know if you were, but they can also help with your competition design as well. For who, we're asking which of your team players are involved, obviously, but also what are their personalities. For what, we're talking about what KPIs are actually being measured. That's going to affect your gameplay. The ideal game is going to be informed by whether you're working to a high or low volume metric and what stage of the sales funnel you're trying to motivate, things like that. When, we're asking when is a competition happening, but not just in terms of your start time, but the duration, how long you want each competition to run. It makes a lot of sense to have longer competitions for end stages of your funnel, like final quotes generated, closed won sales, and then use your smaller time frame competitions for the early funnel where you're trying to rack up a lot of activity to get things moving. So if you're doing cold calls, that's a great place to do a one-day blitz style competition. The where may seem obvious, but it has certain considerations that you might want to bring in. So is everyone going to be in the office? Do you have people who are working from home? Do you have a combination and you need to find a way to engage both sets of people and get them to work together? So that's another thing to keep in mind. Lastly, the why, and maybe you're just trying to boost a weak metric, but often there are secondary goals as well. So maybe it's that people are failing to log their early funnels in a CRM, or their activities from the early funnel in a CRM like Salesforce. And then you can hold a competition that's just based on booking meetings in Salesforce. It motivates people to remember not just to hold those meetings, but to actually log them in and then give you better historical records. If you're trying to foster community, you should maybe do a competition that pairs people together in teams. You could prevent burnout by changing how easy the goals are to achieve success in a competition. So we're going to be sharing some pro tips and fun details on how to think through all of these questions with an eye to how it's going to affect your individual games and a healthy gamification program for about a quarter. So we're going to take a deeper dive here. I'm going to use this question to focus on one of our favorite topics, which is the classification of team members and people in general into 4 basic player types when they are in a game or a game-like environment, and how each type is motivated in different ways. So these 4 types are called killers, socialites, explorers, and achievers. So your killers are highly competitive and self-motivated people. They take a lot of pride at seeing themselves at the top of a leaderboard and besting rivals. If you had people using the competition chat to talk shit about each other, or if you have people choosing rivals, those are probably your killers if they've discovered the features on their own. If you have these personalities on your team, they might enjoy being put into a bracket competition to solidify their status as the top dog. However, while this is the personality type most associated with the stereotypical sales persona, they're actually pretty rare. They make up only about 1% of most populations. Statistics say you most likely have mostly socialites on your team, about 80% of the population. So this player type is very motivated by being part of a group, by seeing their contribution and achieving together. They're going to enjoy working in team-based competitions or maybe a prize ladder competition that gives everyone a shared goal. Explorers at 10% of the population enjoy creative problem solving, finding new ways to do things. Something like a gift swap competition might be really good for them. It allows them the fun of uncovering a prize with each new report and swapping until they get the one they want most. And achievers, another 10% of the population, want to keep hitting those milestones and beating their own personal bests. So they're usually more comfortable knowing the exact steps to success. So maybe an individual prize ladder with notches along the way with different milestones and stretch goals will let them keep unlocking better and better prizes with each new step. That's a great option for an achiever-heavy team. So think a little bit about which of these descriptions resonate with you when you think about your team, and keep that group's unique mix of personalities in mind when you create your competition schedule so that there's always something interesting coming up for everyone. So the what of your competition. What KPIs, first of all, is going to be their first question when creating a competition in SalesScreen. And we want to choose the right tool for the job. So it's easy to pick competitions that you like the best or that you're just used to, but it's worth thinking a little bit more critically about how your specific goals might affect your gameplay. So for example, if your chosen KPI is something that comes in rapid fire, simpler gameplay is going to be best. So if you're doing a one-day cold call blitz, something simple like a standard competition or a lottery competition is probably best. The more complicated competition types, like the gift swap, where people are opening packages and swapping with each other, when they actually have to click in and do something in the competition every time they submit a record, that might be a little bit difficult for something high volume that's going to go by very fast. So by contrast, those more complex games can spice up longer term goals. So sometimes if you have a longer competition, it'll fade into the background a little bit. But if there's multiple stages in the competition, like in a bracket or a multi-round, that can keep people interested. It can keep people going, and it lets people actually keep up with the gameplay when they have more time to submit those things. So the other thing to keep in mind is to make sure that the team has the tools they need for the results you want. So you can submit a sales target competition, but if you look and realize that people don't have enough opportunity in the pipeline to get to any of those targets that you've set, it's going to be a little bit demoralizing. So it might be better to adjust the goal or maybe switch your metric to an activity earlier on in the sales funnel to generate that pipeline, rather than going for something that they're not realistically going to be able to hit. Lastly, you want to think about whether you're competing on a metric where different teams or individuals have very different expected outputs. So maybe you have a mixture of experience levels on your team, or, another example that I gave earlier, an inbound team versus an outbound team. This could be really discouraging if just by the nature of your role, you're going to have less output and it's a straight leaderboard competition. So it might be better in certain circumstances to have custom teams where you can put different people of different experience levels or expected outputs together. And you can also set custom goals in a competition for each player to make it based on the completion of that goal. So if you have a smaller goal and you complete or exceed it, you still have a chance to win over somebody who has a larger goal that they maybe officially do more than you, but they have fallen short of that actual goal. So it levels the playing field in that way. If you have the scorecards module enabled in SalesScreen, you can do a scorecard-based competition. So that's a great way to level the playing field as well, because it's looking holistically at performance. And as we mentioned, you can target those scorecards to each of your team's expected contributions and exactly what should be important to them. Coming up on the when. So I'm obviously not going to tell you exactly when you need to start your next competition, but what I am going to tell you is that we have different ways that things tend to work in terms of the duration and the time of the week to start your competition. We've collected some internal data from our customer base, and we found that by a long shot, short-term competitions tend to increase KPIs more than long ones, all else being equal. There's still good reasons to do long-term competitions to keep things on people's minds throughout a whole month or quarter. But with those, you might need to do a little more cheerleading to keep them from fading into the background. Success rates also vary by day, and you can see from this chart here, we found that the middle of the week is the best time to start your competitions. I think coming in Monday, people have a lot being thrown at them. They're not really focused yet. So especially if you're doing a very short competition, starting it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday is probably best. Coming into our where, again, you have your office probably. So this question might seem obvious, but there's a few tips and tricks depending on the specifics of where your team is located. So if you're in the office, great. There are ready-made leaderboard slides that come with each competition. We encourage you to publish those to all of your playlists that are going to be showing, publish them to the feeds as well. But when people are constantly reminded of the competition by seeing it up on the screens, that does so much of your work for you and keeping it on people's minds. If you've got a lot of remote workers, you want to keep them involved. So again, remember the mobile app, get them to install it on their phone, make it easier to keep up. And then some frequent competition activity in the chat. If the manager can go in and add some encouraging words to the teammates, that's really helpful, especially if you've got a remote team. That's going to be the reminder that they have when they see a message in the chat. So you can also think a little bit about the actual physical space you'll be concluding your competitions, especially longer ones that have bigger ticket goals. We had a team that actually rolled out a red carpet in front of their screen just to make it the biggest possible event. So you can find ways like that to make it feel like a party. Even if you're announcing results to a fully remote team, you can share the competition progression animation screen on a call to make it a little bit more fun. And the lottery competition is an especially fun one for announcements because you're actually determining the final results live when you spin the wheel. So that brings us to our final question, why? So you may have a KPI in mind, but specifically, why are you gamifying this metric? So there are some specific use cases. Maybe you are looking to speed things up and get more records in really fast. This is where you might try a King of the Hill competition, where each submitted record starts a clock running for the submitter, and each player wants to build the most time where they're the last person to have submitted an activity. So once somebody else submits a record, the clock starts recording how long they've been the most recent person to submit. And at the end of the competition, we see who spent the most time being the most recent person to submit an activity. So this encourages rapid fire work on things that maybe have started to drag a little bit. You can also make a standard competition into a race by setting goals for each player and then changing in the advanced settings the win conditions so that the winner is declared when the top goals are first reached. It'll just shut the competition down, and whoever is in the first 3 spots will be the winners, rather than waiting for the entire time for the competition to pass. So that's another way to encourage speed. If you are looking specifically to motivate your middle performers, and this is where we've seen there's the most potential gains by gamifying, you can try introducing some elements of chance. So we have the lottery competition, which is a really popular option because it lets players get more tickets for submitting more records, but the prize is determined by picking a ticket at random. There's also a lucky competition, which allows random bonus points to be added to a competition score based on an automatic dice roll. So even if you have maybe 2 top performers who tend to dominate your leaderboards a lot, the rest of the team knows that there's still a chance for them to win, and it's always worth it to push themselves just a little bit more because they can still increase that chance to win, even if they know that they're not going to be at the very tip top of the leaderboard. Lastly, if you are looking for greater cohesion amongst your team, you could try a prize ladder goal where everyone is working towards a series of different milestones, or a custom teams competition where you can handpick who works together. You might put, as I mentioned before, senior and junior roles together, or put teams of people together who don't usually interact. That's always fun to have a little bit of newness, and people start to learn to go to their coworkers for help more often if they've been paired together in a competition. So let's put this all together and look at an idea for a sample competition plan for an upcoming quarter. So we would combine some long-running goals with a few different things we can do to increase interest throughout the months and the weeks. For the quarter, we're going to say a shared prize ladder goal. This should usually be something that's key, something you always want everyone keeping an eye on their progress towards, like revenue. So if you need to hit that $100,000 in revenue for the quarter, make that a shared goal with a shared prize, whether that's coins to be divided amongst your team or a special lunch. And then add a stretch goal or two. Perhaps a 125% target completion can get some extra coins, or a full office party. So there's a reason to keep pushing even when we close this target really quickly, which we hope we do. Then month by month, we're going to be looking at how to encourage those mid-funnel actions that take you closer to your revenue goals. So maybe you want to look at some of those records that take a little bit longer to get in, but get you closer to revenue, maybe customer demos, maybe quotes sent. You can split these out in a way that is appealing to your highly competitive team members with a bracket, and then also include a lottery competition on the same metric. And this way, each time a round of players is eliminated from the bracket, you can add them right into the lottery competition. So then people who are eliminated from the bracket don't just check out because they know they haven't won. They're not going to have an opportunity to compete to the end of the month. They still have a greater odds of winning that lottery drawing if they keep going. Finally, throughout your months, have a regular schedule of blitzes on the early funnel tasks that you need to do to have a steady stream of opportunities. So maybe have a weekly call blitz on Tuesday or Wednesday. And again, that's just done with a standard competition that you set to be 1 day long. There's nothing special about it. It's very easy to set up. But if they're coming every week and you make a big deal out of them, they can really increase that productivity. You can spice these up by doing something a little different once a month, maybe a gift swap every 3rd week for 3 days. That takes a little longer, maybe for booking meetings or something like that. And you can make the focus and the gameplay of that special monthly competition something a little bit different each month to keep it special. So maybe that first 3rd week, you'll do a gift swap. And then the next 3rd week, you'll do the lucky competition. And just find ways of keeping it special, maybe make it seasonally themed, and have it respond to the needs of the moment. So you can change that metric that you're competing on depending on what you need to get up at that particular time. So this is just a template, and maybe not every single idea will apply, but it gives you a way of breaking down your goals in a way that's going to keep people involved, in a way that appeals to a lot of different personalities on your team and just shows progression. So you can see how individual drives all build to shared long-term goals. It's a really nice design pattern to use in your schedule that you can keep switching up in new ways. And if you need more ideas, we currently have Scout out right now. You can have Scout as a trial. Scout is our new AI assistant for you, where you can go into a separate chat and ask questions like, can you help me come up with a new idea for a competition based on these 3 teams who need to lift their meetings booked metric? And Scout will give you some ideas. So you have the ability to create some competitions immediately from Scout. Scout can generate standard and lottery competitions for you. But even for those more complex competitions, you can go in and ask for advice on metrics to use. You can ask for teams that are looking for a little bit of a boost, and Scout will give you some ideas on how to gamify in other ways as well. So you can ask for suggestions on endorsements, on achievements that you can add, all sorts of things that you can go to Scout with. And we hope that you'll share your feedback with us as well. So right now, Scout has out from September 9th, and you can have a 1-month free trial. And then after that, you can have 20 lifetime responses per admin. But if you subscribe now to Scout before October 31st, you will have 20% off for life on your subscription to Scout. So we definitely encourage you to go check out Scout, not just in the chat, but also in your team pages, which is a new feature we have where you can click on the highlighted team name in your feed or go searching for a certain team in the search bar that's at the top of your home screen. And Scout will provide some AI insights there on each team and also on your player profile pages, where it'll give you some tailored suggestions for ways to motivate that person or that team with either an endorsement or some metrics that they need to pull up. It will suggest sometimes a mission that you can give to your team members. It's a really nice place where you don't even have to ask questions in those team and player profiles. Scout is going to be proactively coming up with ways to help you engage your team. So that's a really great thing to check out. We hope you do, especially so that you can take advantage of that 20% off lifetime subscription once you decide how much you love Scout. So thank you all so much for joining. Do we have any questions in the chat?
No questions in the chat.
Okay, well, I hope this was helpful and gives you some ideas for getting your team ready to go. We hold these deeper dives on SalesScreen topics the last Tuesday of each month, so we hope you'll keep checking them out. If you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see, please let us know. We hope that they help you get started thinking about gamification and motivation at a slightly higher level, and I hope that you've already gotten some inspiration here today.